So in Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, it was recently announced that experience share will be on from the start. And a lot of people are taking issues with this, and a lot of people aren't understanding why people are taking issue with it. So I just want to go through what the actual problem is. So just to clarify from the start, what people actually have an issue with is it's not experience share existing. No one had a problem with it in X, Y, Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, or Sun and Moon, or the Ultra games. Nobody had an issue with it in those games because they had a little toggle that you could use to turn off the experience share. What people actually have an issue with is forced experience share, which was the case in Let's Go, Pikachu, and Eevee, as well as in Pokemon Sword and Shield. So, now that we got that out of the way, why don't people like it? Because I see a lot of people being like, it just removes grinding. But these are main series Pokemon games. They don't require much grinding, if any, if you just use a little bit of strategy. You have the option to grind away the difficulty if you want to in the older games before experience share. But it was never really the only option, and that's what a lot of people are ignoring. Main series Pokemon games are not like Dragon Quest or something where you're required to grind to reasonably beat the game. I recently did a Nuzlocke of the original Pokemon Gold, got through it perfectly fine without any grinding, including Cynthia. Also recently played a normal playthrough of Pokemon Gold, no Nuzlocke or anything. Beat Red at the range of level 50 to level 40 party. Unlike my third try, I'm not a super competitive Pokemon person. I know a little bit, but not a ton. It just takes making a somewhat balanced team, having a little bit of strategy. That's all you really need in these old games pre-experience share. These games aren't super balanced with it in mind either, so a lot of the people who want to turn off experience share, their issue is that, at least with a lot of people I talk to in person, not even just hardcore competitive gamers, but just people who are going through casually and don't know much about competitive Pokemon, a lot of them ended up really over-leveled by the end of Sword and Shield and found the endgame kinda boring. And if you just had an option to turn off experience share, that really wouldn't be the case. And what it comes down to is experience share is sort of a makeshift difficulty option. Here's the thing, if you don't grind, you won't be over-leveled. So, with experience share turned off, your levels of some of your Pokemon will be lower, which makes the game a little bit more difficult. Not too much, it's Pokemon, it's never going to be super difficult, but it won't be cakewalk press A to win easy like Sword and Shield got. And that's really what people want, is the option to not be bored by the game, and this option was randomly taken away for no reason. I also see people yelling about how, have you ever played another RPG? They're all like this. And no, you don't know what you're talking about, to be frank. In Pokemon, whichever Pokemon are in the battle get the experience, or at least pre-experience share. That's kind of how it works in most RPGs too. For example, let's use the most well-known RPG, Final Fantasy VII. Sure, your 3 main party members do get experience for the battle that they're in, but the party members you're not using still don't get experience. So no, that is not comparable to EXP share. Same goes for the early Persona games. And then I've seen people say Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem works like this. No. Only the unit in the battle gets the experience. Your unit doesn't go and then fight somebody and the rest of your units get experience. That's not how that works. If you're gonna recommend people play more games to understand how common this mechanic is, don't just use a game that is the opposite of what you're saying. Also, all these games, which have quote-unquote totally EXP share mechanics, Pokemon's the only one who didn't do it until now, they're also balanced around having shared experience. Again, you're not going to be heavily over-leveled like the vast majority of Sword and Shield players were by the end of that game. So to conclude, a lot of the people defending the experience share are trying to hide that it's really just the toggle to turn it off that people want back and not having an issue with experience share itself. To drop the real bombshell, I played X and Y through Ultra with experience share on, because I do like Pokemon to be fairly easy. I turned it off near the end of X and Y because it was getting a little bit too easy, but for the majority of it I was fine being slightly overleveled, but not like overly Sword and Shield overleveled. But that's the thing, even if I'm not going to turn it off very much, I am not self-centered. I like people to have fun when they buy a $60 game, and I don't want to be vindictive when the most easy to program option could be implemented to let people have a better time with the game, and it just isn't, out of like sheer pettiness. And on one last note, probably false hope, but a hopeful note, the report did say that experience share would be on quote-unquote from the start. Now, this wording could technically also apply to if it was optional, and if experience share is just the default that can be turned off, which was the case in X and Y through Ultra, and that's the perfect way to do it, but who knows, I hope that's the case in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, but I have my doubts.